Hey, what's going on, classes? Mr. Hayes here. Welcome back to another video for ELA on an asynchronous Wednesday, December 2nd. I'd like to talk you through what's expected for today's work, and we're going to add a new element to our nonfiction notes slideshow we began yesterday. So let's start with our announcements and agenda page. We've got our Elton John song of the day, Benny and the Jets. Highly recommend that one. Rundown of the homework and your own agenda for work at home for today. So the homework is going to be continuing to read your LDG pages in your calendar for December 2nd and adding 8 to 10 more bullet point notes to the slideshow we began yesterday. And then this new element as well. We're going to add a few words to our domain-specific vocabulary sheet. That's the last page of your slideshow. That sounds like a big jumble of words there. It's not as complicated as you think. I will walk you through a few examples of how they croaked in this video. So please watch to the end. Then the agenda for today, after you finish watching this video, it's your responsibility to read and take notes. No surprise there. Reminder of the calendars down here. I highly recommend putting this in your Unit 3 ELA folder, making a copy of it so you have it for the next couple of weeks if you didn't do that already yesterday. And then a reminder of when we are meeting for our first round of discussions, either this Friday, coming up with Sprawl Ball and Planet Earth, or all the way into next week. So let's begin by discussing what domain-specific vocabulary is and talking you through an example with how they croaked and specifically the Elizabeth chapter. So here is the must-watch mini lesson video slide, so you can reference this later on if you need to. So what is domain-specific vocabulary? Well, it is a definition that says language or word choice that's directly related to the class for which you are writing. So it's something specific to that class or that subject. That's an important term or word to know. So put simply, domain-specific words are technical or what they call jargon words important to a particular subject. They apply to the field of medicine, or they apply to English, or they apply to football. They are terms that are specific to that sport or that subject or that class. So for example, if you are writing a literary analysis essay like the 5-paragraph CQA, you might use words like theme, symbolism, or juxtaposition. You're not going to use those terms in the same way in a science packet as you would in the ELA paper. On the flip side, in science, those words would not be as relevant, right? Instead, good semicolon use there, you might use words like scientific method or molecular. They'd be better domain-specific words for that subject. So the domain is really the subject, and it's specific to that subject and their words or terms. So you're going to start to compile a list of words that are specific to your book that directly apply to your nonfiction book, and they help you understand what that book is trying to talk about, okay? So let's use how they croaked as a sample. I've got this page here from the Elizabeth chapter. I'm going to read through and just keep a lens out for words that I can add to my list of domain-specific vocabulary. If you go to your slideshow that we started yesterday, you can see the last page of it is in purple. It's the glossary of key terms. This is where you are going to add your domain-specific vocabulary. This is where you're going to compile those important words. And just like I mentioned yesterday, if you need a list that goes 12, 18, 24 deep by the end of the week, you just have to right-click, duplicate the slide. It'll make a copy of it, and you can have 3 or 4 slides of these key terms if you need to. But we're going to obviously start with the first one. So let's begin here and look out for those domain-specific words. Elizabeth's older stepsister, Mary, was queen before her. I mean, you could use queen for sure. I'm going to try to be a little bit more technical than that, though. Her nickname was Bloody Mary. They didn't have family barbecues, but Mary did enjoy burning Protestants at the stake. Okay, so Protestants here, it's important to understand the religious faith of England at the time that Elizabeth reigned. So I think I'm going to use Protestants as my first domain-specific word and add it here. Might make this a little bit bigger. And so what does it mean? And this is where I can maybe do a little bit of research to better understand what exactly means in the context of my book. So an extra Google search might help you here. So first of all, what is a Protestant? Let's find that out if we didn't know already, just so we're sure. A member or follower of any of the Western Christian churches that are separate from the Roman Catholic Church. So I'm going to simply copy and paste that. So I have a really good definition of what that is. I've read it over. Now I know in my mind what it is. And then I'm going to use context clues to get a better idea. That's not copying and pasting very well, is it? Copy, paste. paste. There we go. And then I might change this so it's not that awkward white background. You can see this is in real time. And then I want to know in context clues how it applies to Elizabeth and Mary. So it says, in that family barbecues, but Mary did enjoy burning Protestants at the stake. So it seems like because Elizabeth and Mary are on one side, the Protestants may be on the other side. So there could be some sort of religious conflict there. Posed a religious conflict with Mary, Elizabeth, and the official Catholic Church, separate from the Roman Catholic Church, as it says in the definition right here. That's a better understanding of who the Protestants were. They were a kind of a Western Christian church that was separate from what Mary and Elizabeth, what church they belonged to, and that's why they were conflicting forces during this time in the late 1500s, early 1600s in England. Let's keep going. Luckily for everybody, Mary died and Elizabeth became the Queen of England. The red-haired Elizabeth was 25 years old when the coronation ring was placed on her long, narrow finger. So there's a bigger word right there that maybe I'm not sure what that means, and how does it apply to Elizabeth? So coronation is a ceremony of crowning a sovereign or a sovereign's consort. So here, this is a term very specific to the crown and specific to Elizabeth's life. It's not going to apply to other subjects like necessarily science or sports or medicine, like I mentioned before. It's specific to understanding who Elizabeth was and what happened during her reign. So this is a great one to use for domain-specific vocabulary. I got this definition here, but I'm not sure what like consort is. I know the first part, okay, but it looks like this definition is even more clear. It's the act of placement of or bestowal, to bestow someone with something, to give them something, of a crown upon a monarch's head. I'm going to use that one instead. So here I will put coronation, and then paste the definition and get rid of that background. All right, so now I know that she was coronated at 25. She was given this ring. This ring is symbolic of taking over the throne. And that's why, as we remember from last week or 2 weeks ago, she refused to have it taken off of her finger because it was symbolic of her reign. They actually had to cut off her finger. Now that she was queen, her advisor set her up on a date and told her to get a husband, have an heir, and then she'd be safe. She liked men and they liked her, but she liked her head more. So here we've got heir as another one. That's, again, specific to the crown, specific to the reign of England. And so I'm going to look up the definition there. It says heir to the throne is a possibility. So it's a person legally entitled to a property or rank of another on that person's death, or a person inheriting and continuing the legacy of a predecessor, someone before them. So I'll use this one and go over here, heir. Copy and paste if it'll let me. There we go. I like the way that looks. And I've started on my glossary of key terms, domain-specific vocabulary. Protestant, coronation, heir directly apply to Elizabeth's life. They're very important to understanding her reign, understanding the years that she was Queen of England. And so they apply so specifically to this book and to understanding her life. So you are looking for, whether it's basketball terms in Sprawl Ball, history terms in History Decoded or Howard's End, scientific ecosystem, ecology terms in planet Earth, or maybe even how we got to now, et cetera, et cetera. You're looking for those key terms, those definitions, to put together a glossary of domain-specific vocabulary that applies to your book. So I'm not going to set a certain number for you to do here. It's just kind of when you notice it, you add it. Maybe around 4 or 5 would be a good goal to have. You can go back to Tuesday's reading and add some that you may have found there as well. But you're continuing to add not just to this list, but also answering the 6 questions on your slideshow with 8 to 10 bullet points as well. So as you can see on my last slide here, it's a rundown of what's expected of you today on Wednesday. As I said, pull up your slideshow from yesterday in your Unit 3 ELA folder. If you didn't put it there, I would suggest you do so. But you can find it in your Google Drive with a quick search. As I said, aim for 8 to 10 more bullet points of notes. Here's a link to your calendar in the announcements and agenda page if you, again, need access to that, a reminder of what's expected of you for reading, and then add any domain-specific vocabulary you find. So between watching this video and reading and taking notes, that should take you the full hour of ELA time committed to this Wednesday, December 2nd. My office hours are 8:30 to 9:30 this morning. I have an afternoon meeting, a series of meetings. So I had to move that early. If you need some help, don't hesitate to jump on those office hours or send me an email today. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.